Welcome back to the BaptiCatholic Show.
In this episode, we're going to be addressing the question, what if my spouse isn't Catholic?
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the BaptiCatholic Show. We've got Skyler, Casey's sister here.
My sister.
Yeah. And she's going to talk about what it's like and some practical ways if you don't have a spouse, or if you have a spouse, I guess, rather, that is not Catholic.
Now, before we do that, though, Skyler, welcome back into the BaptiCatholic Show.
Hey, it's great to be here. I'm honored.
Okay, stop sounding so convincing. All right. But before we jump into the specific topic for the day, real quick, people can go back in the archives of the BaptiCatholic Show, used to be Catholic on Purpose Show, and find your full-fledged story about how you came into the church. You're also a convert.
Right.
In the Catholic Church, in case you didn't know that.
Right.
I almost forgot.
So, just a brief recap. What were some of the things that brought you into the church? How was that? Just a real quick.
The Eucharist, I think key point there. We got to digging into like my husband wasn't a member at our little Baptist church, and so he was like denied their like Lord's Supper, so they got the wheels turned. Like, hey, what, like that kind of thing. Of course, your all's conversion that got us thinking about it, and got me thinking about it and digging in. Stuff started to make sense. Get a little suspicious.
So you two, like me, were both Baptists, right? We came to the church. So now that you're in the Catholic Church, how many years ish?
What is this year?
2021.
21. I came into the church 2015.
Cool.
Yeah.
So since coming to the church, obviously a lot of life has happened for you. Now, how many littles do you have? What's going on?
So we have 3 under 3. Tomorrow, big 3 birthday. It'll be 3 tomorrow.
The oldest.
Yeah, our oldest. So it's been crazy. Been pregnant a long time.
And then how old's Okie?
Okie's 18 months, and then Ruthie is 3 months.
Yeah.
So we got.
Wow, didn't know that. That's interesting information. People are like, "Wow, what a terrible brother."
They're also godchildren, so we don't keep up with anybody.
In a real way, I'm the godfather.
Okay.
I picked the best ones I could find. No,
This is on. I could find. Okay, so how has that been? So you got 303. Okay, how's wagging them to mass and all that good jive stuff? I bet that's just working out. Because we have no experience with this, by the way.
Right. Well, so far with the most recent edition, it's been struggle bus. We've been struggling a little bit.
I'm thinking about your oldest going to mass. It was Leo, right, that went to mass and pulled down his pants and because he wanted to get comfortable.
Okay, listen, I didn't think we were hashing everything out tonight on the show. My kids are perfect angels in mass. We do not even do that kind of thing. They never even make a peep.
Okay.
No, yeah, Leo. I mean, the 3-year-old. Yeah, one day he was like, I mean, they get to run around the house and whatever, play clothes. Sometimes they get a little hot. I guess they got to take his britches off. Whatever. We're potty training too. I mean, he's pretty much potty trained. So for a long time, we didn't wear diddly squat. All right. So, dude, in the back pew, because of things like this. I looked over and he's got his britches down, so I was like, pull them up.
This is how it's gonna be. This is how it's gonna be. All right. Okay.
Whatever.
Oh
No,
man.
it's been tough, this transition. I've got to get a routine in, and you know, she's only 3 months old, and Oki is just a terror right now at 18 months. It's just a rough age. I feel like they're, you know, wanting to get into everything. They don't listen real well. So, and most of the time I go alone. You know, I mean, sometimes I look up and Bailey, you know, our sister is there, or, you know, grandma is there, and they can kind of be at the other end of the pew. But we're in a transition period, trying to figure out how to wrangle them and everything with the new addition.
So for the most part, how have other parishioners been supportive? Has it been kind of one of those things where you've got some dirty looks, or
No bad looks. I mean, as a mom or dad taking your kids, you feel like everything is like like everything's so loud. You just want them to shut their little pie holes, you know, and they're screaming. It sounds so loud, but to other people, it's like, you know, not a big deal. And I say that because whenever I hear somebody else's kid, I'm like, you know,
Nope.
whatever. It's not that bad, you know. And then they're taking their kid out, so I'm like, oh man, I hate that for them.
Yeah.
But no, everybody's been really supportive. You know, they offer help, and I just had somebody come up to me today and say, you know, I would have helped you, you know, the other day when kids was acting cray.
just use the word cray? And
No, she didn't say that. She only came up to me because we ended up leaving. Well, you know, because it just was not happening. It was just not a day. It was a daily mass trial, you know, which just burned to the ground. It was so bad. But so we ended up leaving early, and she saw that. She saw the terrible disaster. But anyways, and was reaching out and was like, you know, I would have helped you if you wanted to stay, that kind of thing. So everybody's really, really nice, really supportive, encouraging, you know, been there, done that kind of thing. You know,
yeah, right.
they've had kids, or, you know, it's not a new thing, you know, bringing, you know, having kids in church and kids acting out, you know, it's kids, it's part of it. So everybody's been really, really helpful and stuff.
Well, that's good, and I think it's a good point to dwell on, because I think there are a lot of probably folks out there who get the opposite, or maybe get a few of those dirty looks and feel like, well, if that's the case, I won't bring children to mass anymore, or I won't go to mass, and so they get rubbed the wrong way. And just a lesson for us all, the parents, to keep on keeping on, and other parishioners to be supportive and reaching out, and so that's good. Now, go ahead.
Well, you had said there you go to mass alone for the most part, you know, which is what we're talking about, that your husband's not Catholic, and so is that harder? Do you think that makes it harder, like going to mass without? You know, I mean, it's just you.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is, because I mean, he's the only other person at home,
right,
laying down the law, you know what I mean? So like, as my equal in parenting, you know, they're going to listen to him versus, you know, they're going to try to knock grandma out of the pew to get out, you know what I'm saying? So it's helpful to have that other parent there, and he has gone before, you know, and on occasion, and when that kind of thing happens and one of the kids freaks out, he knows when to grab one of them and take them out and can bring them back in. That's happened maybe a couple times that he's been with me. He's gone before. It's not that he's never gone with me, but he doesn't go regularly.
Yeah,
it's very rare.
So I'm curious on that point before we jump into kind of more of the nitty gritty here. So how did he handle then? Because like you said, he came into our little Baptist church before he made the transition over to Catholicism. How did he handle the transition from Baptist to Catholic in your particular? Was it
We're
just kind of like
BaptiCatholic, if you will.
BaptiCatholic? How did he handle that, or was it kind of just a nonchalant, like, "Oh, good for you"?
Well, it kind of had different phases. So when I first started digging into it, I was super excited, learning stuff. Actually, if you watched my other episode, I talked about going to Casey and Aaron's house, going to y'all's house, and having paper that I wrote all my questions down on and got all my answers to. Well, I brought those back home whenever I came home, and I was like, look at this, like, look at, it was just amazing. Like, and I just was like, did you know this? And did you know that? Going down my paper.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like excited. I don't think so much for like about the information, but that I was so excited. Like, he's like, wow, I didn't know that, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm working on my personal journey, digging in. We moved, one of those many times that we move, and start going to RCI.
Do you have a number?
How many times you all moved?
Dog, it's like up near 15 or something. 15, 16, 23, I'm not sure. Yeah. And so I'm going to classes, and I decide I'm gonna, this is where it's at. And I think he was a little bit taken off guard. He knew I was looking into it and going to classes and stuff, but I don't think he thought it was going to happen so soon.
RCIA class?
Yes, I was at and he had come to a couple of them, but it was like hit or miss. It was like something he was going with me, just kind of learn, but it hadn't like snagged him like it had me. So anyways, I think it kind of took him off guard whenever I jumped in, so wholeheartedly, and so it got a little rocky there. I think my problem was I pushed too hard. I was too excited.
Yeah.
This relates to the last episode that Casey did by himself. If anybody,
yeah.
5 ways to alienate everyone. Skyler likes to engage in that just as much as I do.
So I think I pushed. I was excited. I didn't feel like I was pushing too hard because I was excited. I just wanted him to know what I knew. I wanted him to feel what I felt. But I did. I pushed too hard and basically pushed him away. In a sense of like, it turned him off to it. He wasn't. Even if it wasn't his thing to begin with, and he decided, well, I'm not going to do that right now. Now he definitely wasn't, because I just went too gung-ho. I mean, and looking back, you wish you could do things differently, not be so pushy and stuff like that. But, it is what it is. You can't change it. So that's where we were. It was pretty rocky for a long time. Me kind of shoving it at him. And then it turned into, I didn't want him to like resent it or resent me even. So I kind of like shut it down. So there was like no discussion, no anything, and we didn't have kids at this point. So there was really no, like, I wasn't trying to hide my faith or anything, but I wasn't doing prayers out loud or you know what I mean, like the stuff that you do with your kids, like and trying to teach them and the things that your day-to-day stuff that you're doing. So it was kind of like a silent period. I didn't want to push him any further. And now we're kind of in a sweet spot. I'm vocal about my faith, and I do stuff with the kids. We do our prayers. We I'll take Leo to mass with me, or just that kind of thing, and I talk about it pretty normal, and it's just there now. I don't push, but I don't hide. So it's just kind of,
that's good.
Just kind of there. So yeah, he respects that. So we got to a spot where it's pretty steady.
Awesome. So what would you say has been, I know you kind of recounted some of that then, what's the hardest thing? And maybe it's a practical, like we were talking about earlier, managing the kids, maybe it's more deeper than this, but what's the most difficult thing? I mean, we kind of take for granted, we had the blessing of both coming in together, reading the same books, and then ending up on the same journey together. Some couples, they live their whole lives, and one of them does their thing, the other goes to mass, and some eventually, win over. The Holy Spirit gets to the other spouse, and they both, are. So, what's the hardest thing about right now having a spouse outside of the church?
Well, I think when I first came into the church, it was like mentally, it was that longing that I had for him to be there, to be Catholic. I just wanted him so badly to be Catholic and see what I saw and experience that. I think that was the biggest thing then. Of course, I will always have hope that he converts, and it's not that that's any less, but that was almost consumed me.
Yeah.
Thinking like he needs this. I need him to be this, Now it's still in my heart. I pray for his conversion, and I always will, but it's not like dragging me under, so now more than anything, it's probably like with the kids, there's that aspect of, it would be nice to have somebody there to help me wrangle the kids so I could take everybody to mass, because I don't always take all the kids, to mass. I'll take our oldest or something like that. But also he's like a big role model. They see dad, and and they're gonna start wondering why dad isn't, and go to church with us, and so I think about that a lot, and I don't know, I'm like thinking about future problems, so that weighs on me, but I mean, other than that, I think I have grown spiritually from that just almost a selfish desire of needing him to be Catholic. He's got to be Catholic. I always have that hope. I always pray for him, but it's not like killing me, feeling like he's got to do it or nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, no, I yeah, perfect. And I was thinking too, it's I think that is a sign of maturity, as we've gone on this path. I think me and you are like, me, you and Aaron are all like, in that the initial, maybe not Aaron. Aaron's been mature the whole time, but I haven't. So the initial push is just, everyone needs to become, because at least where you're at now, when you've converted, when you come into the church, everything is so clear, or at least what you understood.
Why wouldn't you want to do this? That's exactly. I feel like it is, and it doesn't come out of a mean place at all. It just is too much for other people, but the Lord just hasn't opened them to that at that point. And that's not to say like anything bad about them. It's just the Lord has his own time for things.
Yeah.
Right.
But even it's just funny because you come, like you said, it's an interesting way, like consumed, and it almost drags you under. It almost portrays a lack of trust in God, right?
No, exactly. Yes, absolutely.
You have to, even though you would say things like, well, the Holy Spirit I just pray that the Holy Spirit will convert his heart or whatever. Really, you're acting out and feeling as though you were the one that's going to affect this change. Like, I've got to be the one to cram this down his throat, because if I don't, he won't. And so that's portraying a lack of trust in God and leaving it in his hands. That's not, and I like what you said too about being in the sweet spot. It's not that you just totally shut things off, because that's one of the most effective witnesses, right? Is living your life
Mm-hmm.
very Catholic in front of others, that's not shoving it in your throat. Because I mean, reflect about to where we were at the beginning of our own treks towards Catholicism, even if we didn't know it was a trek towards Catholicism at that point. If anybody had come up to us in an abrasive way and said, you need to do this, you need to become Catholic, we would have recoiled and went, whoa, back up. What are you even talking about? Like, no thanks. And it might have even sent us in a different direction. So keeping that is an important point just in general in our interactions and attempts to evangelize other people, not just our spouses. So anyway, so what are some things then branching off of that? So what are some things, I think you've already kind of highlighted some, so you might just distill them back or whatever. Some things you've learned about engaging with your spouse, with your husband, about topics of faith. So where did you how did you start, and some of the errors, bumps along, and then now kind of, you said you're at a sweet spot. So what are maybe some tips, or well, just things that you've learned, and then we'll talk about tips in a minute.
So I think for our relationship in particular, for us, just living out my faith at home is like the best tactic. I don't know, like the best route for us. For instance, like if we're in the car, like today we had a long car ride, and so I asked him, can I pray my rosary? Like, are you okay with that? Instead of music or whatever was on, can I pray my rosary? And I put my little audio on and pray with whoever's praying. And he's like, sure. So while I'm praying my rosary, they give, a little description of each decade. And at one point, what was it today? Yes, it was one part in particular. When Jesus descends into hell, right? It says that the descent into hell, just like that. And so he was like,
right,
into to hell. And so that opened up a chance for me to talk about it and explain what that meant, and so just stuff like that, naturally, just letting things come up naturally. I don't, if something is like, I find out something new, or I learn something new, I might bring it up, like, did you know this kind of thing? Or, like like it excites me kind of thing. Mention it. But other than that, it's pretty natural. I let him come to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I let him come to me.
Yeah, I like that example of the rosary, because it's good. It's like a 2-punch deal. Okay, you asked him. I don't mean like you're trying to like
1-2 punch.
I don't mean that at all. But so that was something you wanted to do in the car, like your all's car. Okay, so it's not as if you came into like his territory that he was doing. You didn't alienate him by saying, now we're going to do some Catholic things, right? But you were on a car ride. You wanted to pray your rosary. You didn't tell him or beg him to pray the rosary with you, or whatever. You just were doing it. He happens to be an audience to it because he's in the same vehicle. And
this is not out of the blue. This is not like I never pray my rosary unless we're like he's in the car with me. Like like, because there's been several times he's gotten in the car and I'm finishing my rosary, or so he knows that it happens, that I do it with or without him. So it's not like we're in the car together. Hey, can I pray my rosary today? That kind of thing.
Is people can smell inauthenticity.
Right.
So I can smell when you are trying to just beat me over the head to hope that I become Catholic, or whatever you want, which is not right. But what I liked about that is you were doing something really Catholic in a non-intrusive, beating you over the head way, and it prompted a question from him. He reflected on something about the faith that he might have never ever contemplated beforehand. I think that. So if one extreme is beat somebody with the catechism and tell them you're going to hell if you're not become Catholic like in 2 seconds, okay, if that's one extreme, the other extreme is well, I just won't ever bring it up. I don't want to make anybody mad. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. I'll just be super quiet about it. This is my private little thing that I only do. Like, it doesn't have to be either or. Like, it doesn't. It
in
can be
there, both of them. Mm-hmm.
right. It can be a happy medium where you find ways. I think that's perfect, and something that I think other people need to hear. Like, you can be boldly Catholic and not be intrusive or rude or annoying or pestering. I thought you had to be both. That's why people got frustrated with me for a long time. And Erin's looking at me like she still gets frustrated with me, which is not the case. Okay. So anyway, so that's cool. So they prompted that discussion about entering, into hell. So that's, you never know. Maybe he'll think about that later too, and more questions will come up. So that's cool. So living your faith out in a really bold way, yet non-intrusive way. So I wonder, and I think you had a little story for us, but what are some tips? All right, if you're looking at another lady or a man or whatever, they have a spouse, they're not Catholic, maybe they're not interested really right now about being Catholic. What are some wise words or tips that you have, or maybe that you've heard from other really wise people about this and how to deal with it?
So I think I would say, one, don't push too hard. You may not even realize you're pushing. Just it's okay. Like, share your excitement, but then settle down. Does that make sense? Yeah, well, that was in our situation. You settle down. No, but don't push too hard, because it's fragile. You're in a fragile state when you're, contemplating this new faith and somebody's looking into it. You just got to be more sensitive, I feel like. And it's not all or nothing. It doesn't have to be right now or never.
Right.
It could be way later. Have hope that they will convert, but it doesn't have to be now. And that goes back to ultimately trusting in God and in His time. And like I'm part of like some groups on Facebook for Catholic wives. It's like, you can get on there and ask for advice, or find like people, like situations, that kind of thing. And there was a post that I read, and I went to the comments, and there was one comment in particular that really stood out to me. If I could rewind time and go back to when I was first looking into Catholicism, and I was so excited, I was pushing too hard, I wish I had this woman's outlook on my current situation, what I was going through. But I'm gonna read a part of her comment, and this is Becca McCracken. She told me I could give her a little shout out there, not just giving out info, permission. Okay. She says, let's see here. Oh, her husband was raised Catholic, but is currently atheist. And she says, I tell my raised Catholic but currently atheist husband all the time that I love him just as he is, and I know his journey with God is between him and God. But I still talk about my faith as if it's the most normal thing ever, because it is for me. She goes on to say, I am 100% sure my husband is going to be an amazing revert, but in his time, capital H. So in God's time, not her husband's time, not her time, in God's time. Yeah. So she knows in her heart, it's going to happen. It's just, it might not happen now. It might not happen for a long time, but she has hope. It's going to happen. He's going to be awesome. He's going to have a story to tell with it whenever he ends up coming back to the church, and I think that goes to show, like, if you're in this struggle, you want your spouse to be there with you. I get it. But it's not all or nothing. Don't lose that hope for them coming, later on, or and don't not trust God's plan. There's a reason that it's playing out the way it is. So have a little more faith, I guess, that it's gonna happen.
Cool.
And one of the tips that you mentioned is prayer, like praying for your spouse.
Absolutely.
And consistently. And I did a novena with a friend of mine whose husband is not Catholic. We did Mary under a Knots novena for him, so even things like that. And it was just the two of us praying a novena together for him. And it wasn't magic, It's
No,
like
absolutely. But not only are you praying for him and that's helping him, what I've noticed in picking up consistent prayer for my husband, not just, oh yeah, I need to pray for him, like at one point I was going through a phase where it was like, it felt like I was almost hopeless, like it's not gonna happen kind of thing. I was not putting my trust in God. I was just like, yeah, it's just not. And I was not consistently praying for him. And one thing I've noticed since I've picked up that consistent prayer is like I am more at peace. It's helped me. I know somebody. I know somebody is praying for him every single day.
Yep.
And so my heart feels better, and since doing that. So, and I know my prayers are being heard. It just might not, my prayers may not be answered right in my time, when I think would be a good time, because I thought that was a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? that's our response, and how we were, why didn't you hook me up with my Catholic husband 6 years ago? You know what I mean? But it's just not time yet. Yeah. And that's how I'm looking at it from now on, moving forward. Not, this is never going to happen because of all these discussions we've had that didn't turn out, how I wanted it, or he seemed so against it. It's just not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. And because I know you, I think one of the other things that I see you do a lot too is asking for intercession from the saints. Like, yes. You have a devotion to Saint Monica.
Yes.
And that kind of thing. Just
you don't have to dig too deep to find a saint that has gone through something at least similar, or that you can relate to, or that you feel like they could, with their intercession, they could help you out. So definitely utilize their intercessions, and because it's definitely helped, and find other people that may have experienced what you're going through, or have seen situations like this, or can relate, because it helps.
Yeah. And talking about, just briefly, for those who don't know who Saint Monica is.
Yeah.
Right. So mama of the great Saint Augustine. Right. And just think about the, of course, the consistent prayer that she gave, and the nights that it would go by, that would continue to roll by. And there had to be times where she felt like this is never going to happen. This will never happen. And she didn't pray. She wasn't praying for the guy to become a giant theologian, one of the most important Catholic theologians that history's ever seen. She was just praying that he would come to the Lord, come and become Catholic and follow the truth. Yeah. And the floodgates were opened. Yeah. Now, that's not to say that is going to happen exactly every time, exactly that way. But right. You hope that they keep pushing, push through the hopelessness and the frustration and the anger and the worry, and place your trust in God. Right?
Yeah, she didn't give up. She kept going. Mm-hmm. She'd say, "Yep, that's that. This is how it's going to be. It's been crappy for a long time, so it's just going to be crappy.
No.
She kept pushing through, and yeah, so
It reminds me too, you know, not really related to this per se, but of now he's Pope Saint John the 23rd. he would say, I don't know if he did it every night when he went to bed, but it was said that he would say something like, you know, with all the craziness going on in the church. Of course, he's the one who called the Second Vatican Council, right? And there was a lot of pushback on that and stuff. And towards the end of the day, he'd say, "All right, Lord, it's your church. I'm going to bed." Like that realization that this does not all depend on me. Like, I'm not the one that's carrying this whatever it is, whether it's the universal church or, you know, your spouse or your children or whatever. At the end of the day, let it go. Leave it to the Lord.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, think about it. Think about all the people who are not Christian. Are we saying God's not doing his job because they're not? You know, he's got plenty of sons and daughters who have walked away and that continue to do so. So he's not a bad dad because of that happens, right? It's So anyway,
yeah, absolutely.
Always to have hope, right? Always to have hope and to trust.
Mm-hmm.
All right, friends. Well, thank you, Skyler, for being on with us to discuss, I think, what is a really, really important topic. I think people can feel isolated and alone, like they're the only person going through this, but that's obviously not the case. And of course,
and especially as converts, I feel like a lot of this can hold people back from coming into the church. Oh, well, my spouse isn't going to, so I'm in a deal if they're not, you know. So
we don't. You got to push through that. If you got to go it solo, we're going it solo. Come on now, y'all. It's worth you got to come home, whether it's, you know, by yourself or not right now.
Come home. That's so great. Hashtag Country Catholics. Until next time, we hope to see you right back here on the BaptiCatholic Show.